Hello, my name is Katja, and I will present our study, Design Patterns of Health Animation, Scaling Pattern Languages into a New Domain. This study examines the scaling of the design pattern approach into the field of health animation. In this study, we propose that the use of design patterns and the development of an emerging pattern library of health animation patterns can support the design of more informative and useful animations. The presentation is structured as following. First, I'll tell a bit about the research field. Secondly, I'll talk about our approach to the study and our findings in the study. First off is the research field and health animations. To go into the basic, health animations are visualized health information and often consist of multiple modalities such as icons, speech, or text pieces. It is also a type of functional animations which are categorized by being animations which focus are to promote facts and reduce the complexity of information for an audience with different literacy levels. Previous studies have shown that health animation indicates that health animation can have a positive impact on citizens with low health literacy and the ability to recall health information compared to when they get the same information verbally or in, for example, written text. This ability to recall health information are especially of importance since previous studies show that an inadequate comprehension of health information can lead to more hospitalizations and a poor health for the citizen. So when we design health animations, it is therefore important to find the right standards and the right design choices to ensure a proper communication design. And in this way ensure that the citizen is left with an adequate understanding of the presented health information. In the health animation field, effect studies explore in great details how well the health animation product worked. Like, did the citizen get the adequate understanding of the presented health information? However, these studies don't consider which design decisions are behind the measured effect. Like, are the animation working because of the way we illustrated the timeline, the choice we choose in the sense of our narrative, or are they the reason, these choices, are they the reason that this particular animation are not giving the citizen the adequate understanding? So, because of the lack of transparency in the design process, put together with the fact that clear health information is key to better health management for the citizen, we found it relevant to explore whether a well-established design tradition of working with design patterns can be scaled into the field of health animation. The purpose of design patterns is to identify the best practice in the field by acquiring existing sustainable solution, which is a solution that can be reused over and over within the same context. This way, design knowledge would be shared among expert and novice learners, and thereby eliminating the need of starting a design from scratch, because you can learn from other production and use their design decisions within the same context. Furthermore, this approach would not only help to document the design decisions that are being made in the health animation, it will also make them available to critical questioning, such as what are the background of the choices, the design choices. Why did you choose to portray the humans like this? Is it because of tests? Is it because of research, personal preference of the animators, etc.? Through time, this design pattern method can strengthen the basis of the design solution by people reusing the same sustainable solution over and over, and thus fewer decisions would be based on subjective opinions and styles rather than analytical principles and standards. now to how we tested the use of the design pattern method in the health animation field. We started with mapping of 72 Danish functional animation products into 23 design categories. And you can see a version of this in the picture. In these 23 design categories, some of them was form related, such as, for example, the visual fidelity in the animation and the animation genre. Other categories were content related, for example, the narrative structure and the scores. And if we look a bit closer, I know you cannot read it because it's in Danish. The animations were mapped in the vertical line, and in the horizontal line you see the different kind of design categories. For example, here we see the icons, the theme of the animation, the metaphors of the animation, the perspective, the discourse, etc. And from going from this mapping to creating design patterns in these health animations, we had to create our own framework of design patterns. And we ended up with this version of the framework, where we found inspiration within the human-computer interaction field. We created in total 8 patterns from the mapping of the 72 animations. And the design patterns could be looking like this one. This is one of our patterns called Icons in Sickness Explanation. Here we see in the tendency category that the animations under the theme Sickness Explanation have similar icons. And in the occurrence, we see that there are 13 instances of this particular animations within the 72 mapped health animations. There are 2 types of icons that stand out in this type of animation. So the solution is that when you have an animation that is about sickness explanation, you use these 2 icons: the use of the transparent body and the visualization of the sickness process. And under the category of outliers, we see that in this pattern there is 3 outliers, which is that these 3 animations only use one of the patterns, or one of the icons, which is the use of the transparent body. And then we have the category of interpretation, which is about our arguments for why this pattern have chosen these 2 particular icons. And then we also have the different examples here of the animations. So the next step was to testing these design patterns solutions. And the exploration of scaling the design pattern method approach into the health animation field was a part of the Danish research project Cross-Sector Animation. In this project there was created 12 health animations, which you can see an outline of here on the picture. And these health animations was about the lower back pain and related course of treatment. These were the animation in which we tested the design patterns solutions of these the 8 patterns that we created. And thereby we tested the design choices. For example, one of the patterns was about the female or male narrator. So we tested the design decision of choosing either the male narrator or female narrator. This test that we did was made as this test objective was to validate our design pattern solutions in the sense of which if these solutions in the patterns worked and made sense. And also we tested the patterns to see the benefits and the limitations regarding using this design pattern method in the health animation field. The test that we tested these patterns in was a split test, which consisted of a focus group of 6 citizens watching variations of the same health animation. Each section began with showing an animation and then receiving feedback from the citizens. The same animation would then be shown with only one tweaked variable. For example, the first animation would have a male narrator and the second would have a female narrator, whereas the rest of the animation would be the same. The same icons, the same events, the same information given. Because of the size of this split test, it would only function as a proof of concept of implementing the design pattern approach in the field of health animation, and should not be seen as an attempt to draw statistical conclusions of this in this stage. Instead, like said before, this split test gave us an insight into which benefits and problems that might arise for a design pattern library. Because we have only a very little time, we can only go through one of the tests we did. So we tested the female versus male narrator. And in our mapping, there was 55 animations that used a third-person narrator. And within these 55 animations, there was 98% male narrator and 11% female narrator was used. So there was a dominant choice of using male narrators in these animations. And because of that, we tested this design choice of using either a female or a male narrator. And we tested in one of the 12 animations, just as shown before, where we showed the citizen an animation portraying a protagonist, a woman with lower back pain, as you can see here in the picture. She is sad and sitting in her home. Meanwhile, the narrator comment on the fear that people often have about their sickness leave from their job when they have this lower back pain. First, we showed an animation with the male narrator, and afterwards we showed an animation with the female narrator. In this test, there was a preference of the male narrator. So one of the feedback that the citizen gave was that the male narrator was a very pleasant voice, and also he had a good voice. But about the female narrator, it was said that it's a total no-go. I just think it's a bit tiresome, and it gave me a bit uneasy feeling. So there would be a multiple of biases in this test. For example, the reason why they chose this male narrator could be because they have a general preference of a male narrator. It could be that they have a liking or disliking of these specific male and female narrators. Or it could be that in the test there was a confusion regarding the female narrator. Some of the citizens thought that when the female narrator was speaking, that it was the woman's thoughts because the protagonist was also a woman. And again, we wanted to highlight that the test was not supposed to give us an defined answer if the right choice in every context would be to always use the male narrator or to always use the female narrator. Instead, it was to see if the design pattern method could find design choices that was of value to the citizens. And as we can see here, the information experience that the citizen had was very different when we changed just this one variable of a male narrator or a female narrator. So again, the benefits of this test, or the objective of this test, was to figure out which benefits and limitations there could be regarding the design pattern method in the field of health animation. And what we found was, again, there were some advantages and some limitations. So some of the advantages is the transparency and documentation, because the design pattern method in health animations help with creating transparency and documenting the different design choices, as you saw in our mapping of 72 animations. Furthermore, it showed the value of the right design choice, because in the test of the male versus female pattern, we saw how the big difference on the feedback of the choices of the narrators gave. It also showed that the design pattern method alone is not enough to create a strong basis for repeated use of a particular design decision. And at the same time, it also showed that split test and other tests alone is not enough because of the multiple biases that could be in these tests, as we just said before. However, a combination of both sizable split tests or other tests along with an emergent pattern library is possible to validate the design decision by allowing us to measure the result from the test against the best practice in the field, that both our patterns, for example, said to use a male narrator, and in our split test, in this case, it also said to use a male narrator. So in time, this will strengthen the design choices over time, which again is important in the field of health animation because of the importance of understanding the health information to get better health management and a better health in general. But we also saw some limitation in using the design pattern method, which is the testing of the patterns are difficult because of the competing forces. So the participants preferred the male voice as suggested by a pattern. However, the reason for the preference is uncertain because of the challenge to isolate only one variable in the animation. And this we saw in the sense of even though we only tweak one variable, choosing the male narrator or the female narrator, the citizen got confused because of the portrayed protagonist is a woman, and when the portrayed protagonist is the same gender as the voiceover, they can be confused about whether the speech is the woman's thoughts or a third-person narrator. So in total, this all illustrates the complexion of design patterns and their testing process. It shows the need of a constant evolving pattern library that gets tested and adjusted over time if it should be useful in the field of health animation. Thank you for listening.